Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's virtual public meeting for the City of Tampa's El Prado Boulevard Complete Streets and Sidewalk Project. We will be showing a brief presentation, and immediately following, we will be taking your questions in the order they are posted. Thank you, and we will now begin our presentation.
Good evening and welcome to the virtual public meeting regarding the City of Tampa El Prado Boulevard Complete Streets and Sidewalk Improvements Project. Tonight, we will be presenting project updates since our last virtual public meeting. We hope you will find it informative and provide feedback. Before we begin, we would like to provide some important information about participating in this webinar for those attending using a computer, tablet, or smartphone. First, we'll access the control panel on GoToWebinar. On your desktop, you should have a small toolbar with a few buttons to the right of your screen. Simply click on the orange arrow at the top to expand the toolbar. On your mobile device, simply tap the screen to display the same options. This displays the control panel, enabling you to ask a question or download project files. To download project files, simply click on a file within the list when viewing in desktop. When viewing in mobile, click on the document icon. This will display the list of files to download, including a comment form if you'd like to submit a comment by mail at a later date, as well as the project fact sheet and a PDF of this presentation. For those calling in, you may request these documents by calling or emailing the City of Tampa Project Manager. Her contact information will be provided later in the presentation. Finally, to ask a question at any time throughout the presentation, please type the question into the field marked Questions at the bottom of the desktop menu. From your mobile device, simply click the question mark and enter your question at the bottom of the page that opens. For those calling in, contact information to reach the City of Tampa Project Manager to ask questions and provide comments will be provided later in the presentation. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 states that no person shall, on the basis of his or her race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance pursuant to the requirements of Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The Mayor and City Council value diversity and welcome input from all interested parties. Moreover, the City does not tolerate discrimination in any of its federally assisted programs, services, or activities. The City of Tampa will not exclude participation in, deny the benefits of, or subject to discrimination anyone on the grounds of race, color, and national origin. Any person can file their concerns by visiting the City's Office of Human Rights webpage located at the bottom of this slide. Now that we have covered how to navigate the GoToWebinar control panel, we will show you the exciting improvements we have planned for El Prado Boulevard. Again, thank you for sharing your time with us this evening to learn about the progress of this project since our last public meeting in January of this year. Available to answer questions tonight are members of the project team. From the City of Tampa, Laura Bauk, Project Manager. George Huey, Project Coordinator, and Cal Hardy, Chief Design Engineer, are present. We are also joined by members of the consultant team, Bruno Fiore with AECOM and Chris Mears with Native Engineering. A portion of this project will be funded through Transportation Alternatives grants administered by the Florida Department of Transportation. As a recap, the improvements proposed along El Prado Boulevard extend from South Omar Avenue to Bayshore Boulevard, which includes the Commercial District section from South Manhattan Avenue to South Lois Avenue. As another recap from our first public meeting, El Prado Boulevard currently carries an annual average daily traffic volume of 4,200 to 9,000 vehicles per day. Roadways with traffic volumes less than 10,000 ADTs are considered great candidates for a road diet by the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA. From Omar Avenue to McDill Avenue, the roadway footprint will be changed to incorporate a 2-foot paved shoulder near the median, a 10-foot vehicular lane, and an 8-foot buffered bike lane. It's called a buffered bike lane because it is separated from the travel lane by double white striped lines, placed approximately 3 feet apart. The buffer is intended to provide space between bicyclists and vehicles in the travel lane and allows for physical protection features such as raised separators at conflict points near intersections. Roadside improvements in this segment include filling sidewalk gaps within the project limits to provide continuous sidewalk on both sides of the roadway. From McDill Avenue to Bayshore Boulevard, the roadway footprint won't change much. The on-street parking will remain as is. To provide continuity for bicyclists along this constrained segment, the existing travel lanes will be designated as Sharrow lanes. The Sharrow pavement markings indicate where bicyclists and motorists will share the travel lane and alert motorists where to expect bicyclists within the travel lane. After the January public meeting, you provided us with many good comments that led us to analyze various aspects of the design. Various slides from this presentation will address those comments with the proposed design improvements. In addition to the proposed road diet, the city is also considering the following other traffic calming measures: enhanced signage, delineators, speed tables, and rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFBs. There is one area of the El Prado Boulevard corridor where the surrounding context of the roadway changes significantly. This area is the commercial district from west of Manhattan Avenue to Lois Avenue. The city met with property owners in this area to discuss proposed solutions to existing sidewalk gaps, parking, and access to businesses, and pedestrian and bicycle conflicts with vehicle parking spaces. Based on these meetings, the commercial corridor will be improved with a combination of modified angled parking spaces with urban bike trail and existing parking spaces with an on-street cycle track. To maximize parking within this segment of the corridor, parallel parking spaces will be incorporated along the south side of El Prado from Hubert Avenue to Lois Avenue. This project includes rehabilitating the roadway by milling and resurfacing the pavement in both directions to provide a smooth driving surface. A 5-foot sidewalk will be added on the north side of the roadway where there are existing sidewalk gaps. The sidewalk will typically be constructed several feet behind the roadway curbing and will meander to minimize impacts to mature trees and other existing features. However, in some cases, there is no choice but to remove trees and/or landscape to install the sidewalk on city property. For that reason, it is recommended for property owners who have landscape and other features close to the roadway to reach out to the project manager to find out if those features will be impacted, giving the property owner an opportunity to relocate these items prior to construction. There are existing barriers to pedestrian and multimodal access along El Prado Boulevard. For example, there is no existing sidewalk on the north side of El Prado Boulevard, across the railroad. A new sidewalk will be added at this location, as shown in the concept on the right. High-emphasis crosswalks will be added at major intersections. The picture on the left is an example at Church Avenue, where there are no existing crosswalks. The concept on the right shows the proposed crosswalks and signage locations. High-emphasis crosswalks will also be added at the intersections at Lois Avenue and Sterling Avenue. At the intersections identified in the 2 previous slides, Lois Avenue, Church Avenue, and Sterling Avenue, we will also add speed tables to slow down the traffic speeds and add rectangular rapid flashing beacons for added visibility and awareness of pedestrians. Another example of how this project will improve pedestrian safety is demonstrated east of the railroad crossing at Drexel Avenue, where there is currently a skewed intersection with excessively long crossing distances. This project will modify the geometry of the curved line to shorten the crosswalk lengths as shown in this figure. High emphasis crosswalks will also be added at this intersection. Various drainage improvements are also included as part of the project, including replacing damaged inlet tops and regrading select intersections to minimize standing water within the roadway. In addition to the buffered bike lanes, the project aims to improve operations and safety for bicyclists throughout the project. Thinking about how traffic will flow along the roadway, lawn service, waste pickup service, and mail delivery service will all temporarily occupy the right side of the roadway as they currently do. With the proposed improvements in place, bicyclists will be able to decide how to safely get around the stopped mail, delivery, and waste management trucks. If there are no vehicles in the travel lane, a bicyclist can choose to use the travel lane to pass. Another option for the bicyclist will be to get around the obstruction by using the sidewalk. To improve operations and safety for drivers and bicycle riders around car lines to schools, the project will provide a dedicated eastbound right turn lane for the entrance into Holy Trinity Lutheran School to accommodate the long lines of cars waiting to drop off or pick up students. The eastbound inside lane will be a Sharrow lane. The eastbound outside lane will be considered a right auxiliary lane. Immediately after the school property, the roadway lane configuration will transition to a dedicated inside travel lane and outside bike lane. Additionally, a dedicated eastbound left turn lane and a dedicated westbound right turn lane onto South Concordia Avenue will be added to accommodate the long lines of cars waiting to drop off or pick up students at Roosevelt Elementary School. The eastbound outside lane and westbound inside lane will be Sharrow lanes, shared by through traffic and bicyclists until after crossing Concordia Avenue, where the roadway lane configuration will transition to dedicated inside travel lanes and outside bike lanes. This rendering shows a driver's view of the westbound Sharrow lane and right turn lane across the railroad crossing leading up to Concordia Avenue. A continuous sidewalk will be added on the north side of the roadway across the railroad crossing. Physical barriers will protect the bicyclists from vehicles encroaching into the bike lane as they make the turns into and out of side streets. These barriers can be placed within the buffer area shown on the typical section slide shown earlier in the presentation. These physical barriers will not be placed in front of driveways and will not obstruct the flow of delivery services. Additional ADA accessibility concerns currently exist within the project study area, and the proposed design aims to address them. ADA accessibility will be improved at the West Shore Boulevard intersection through the addition of ramps and walking paths to push buttons at the locations shown here. There are existing utility poles in the middle of the sidewalk on the south side of El Prado between McDill Avenue and Bayshore Boulevard. These utility poles cannot be relocated. To mitigate the ADA accessibility conflict, we propose introducing a crossing to provide ADA access to the north sidewalk. The green route shown in this exhibit indicates the ADA path along El Prado that bypasses the conflicts with the utility poles. The proposed mid-block crossing, just to the west of the first utility pole conflict, provides a connection point between the south sidewalk and north sidewalk, thus offering a short detour around the obstructed south sidewalk. The project also aims to provide for a safer path from El Prado onto Bayshore Boulevard. To enhance awareness of pedestrian presence, we will add signage. RRFBs will also be installed to help control the traffic for pedestrians crossing Bayshore Boulevard. Here is a closer look at the proposed signage and pavement markings at the Bayshore intersection. To provide a gentle slope across the steep median, a staggered sidewalk configuration will connect the two crosswalks along Bayshore Boulevard, similar to the existing crossing at West Align Avenue, about a mile south of this location. A temporary traffic control plan, TTCP, is being developed to route traffic during construction. That TTCP will minimize disruption and impacts to the residents and traveling public. The contractor will coordinate with the property owners to provide access during construction. There are many steps in the design process, including permit approvals and utility certifications, but highlighted here are the project schedule key milestones. The design plans for this project will be at 60% completion in November of 2022. Final plans and documents are anticipated to be completed in October of 2023. And finally, the advertisement for the construction phase is anticipated in February of 2024. We encourage your input and feedback about this project. If you are participating online, you may submit written comments in the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can also contact us by email at elprado@tampagov.net or by U.S. mail at 306 East Jackson Street, 6E, Tampa, Florida, 33602. You may also call the project manager at 813-274-3101 to provide verbal comments during normal business hours after the public meeting. This contact information is also available on the public meeting notification that you may have received by mail. Thank you for attending this virtual public meeting. We'll now answer questions you have provided. Please feel free to continue to ask questions in the question box to the left of your screen. Good
evening. I'm Christine Girardin. I'm the communications specialist for this project, and I'll be reading your questions and comments this evening. Our first one is from Jake. I've lived on El Prado for almost 10 years. The speeding is a major issue. Can we address the speeding concerns with the traffic calming of this project?
Okay, I can answer that. Yeah, so there's a few things as far as traffic calming that this project will provide. The biggest benefit would be the removal of the lane. Having one lane kind of forces the slower traffic to dictate the speeds. So that would be one thing. But in addition to that, we were actually looking at some raised crosswalks, but when you install a raised crosswalk, you have some issues with ADA sometimes. So what we're looking to do instead is to include a crosswalk, but in advance of the crosswalk, do a speed table. So basically it's the same effect. You're still getting that vertical deflection, that slowing down, but instead of at the crosswalk, it would actually be about 70 feet in front of the crosswalk.
Our next question is from Amy. Regarding the AADT counts in the July 2012 City of Tampa Walk Bike Report, are those from 2012 counts?
Those would be probably probably before 2012, but we did a traffic study in 2018 as well. So the counts that are presented in the presentation are from 2018, not 2010 or 2012.
This question is from Esther. I emailed this question prior, but will elevated crosswalks be installed? Where are they planned?
So we're not doing elevated crosswalks, but something very similar. It's another method. But Bruno or Chris, do y'all have the actual locations for the intersections?
The speed, you're talking about the speed tables?
Yes, where the crosswalks, the RFBs with the speed tables.
So they would be at the major intersections, Church, Sterling, and yeah, Bayshore, Lois and Bayshore. Sorry, not Bayshore, not Bayshore.
Right, but Church, Sterling, and Lois. And
yes.
Then
so Chuck,
go ahead.
Chuck,
go ahead.
Yeah. So Chuck, if you go to an earlier slide that shows intersections, we can show those intersections too. Keep going earlier in the presentation. Here we go, right here. So at Lois, Sterling, and then I believe the slide before that is Church. At those three intersections, we will have the speed tables ahead of these crosswalks.
Yeah, we have a rendering of that somewhere, or a picture to show an example.
A couple slides after this.
Slide 24. And but on slide 24 they actually have that, and then the product that we're using, it could be either be this or it could actually be asphalt as well. We're kind of going through that, looking at trying to use this area as kind of like a to test out a few methods. But basically what this would be that speed table would be in advance of the crosswalk. So it kind of controls speeds, and then they'll have the RFB, which is the yellow flashing buttons, or crosswalk as well.
Okay, this next question is from Amy. How many daily bicyclists are estimated to use these bike lanes? How many use Platt Street bike lanes currently?
I don't think we have any counts on Platt Street, or I'm not sure if we had. I think we did have some counts for this.
Yeah, Kyle, I can take that question.
Sure.
Yeah, so we did a traffic study back in 2018 that did include bike and ped counts, and so generally I think within like a 12-hour period we're seeing about it ranges and fluctuates between like 3 to about like 18 throughout the entire period. But I think what we are seeing, because we get this question quite a bit in terms of like how many counts are you seeing right now on the bicycle front? Does that justify like adding bicycle lanes? And so but yeah, I guess to kind of like address that question, the El Prado corridor doesn't actually have a safe like bicycle facility, and so by installing the bicycle facility, you're encouraging more alternate modes of transportation. And so in this case, that's what we're trying to do, and then we're trying to address like the mobility and safety front as well. And so there's all part of like the mayor's vision of transforming Tampa's tomorrow, where we're trying to provide increased mobility, but also address the safety impacts of your vulnerable road users. And so that's your pedestrians and your bicyclists.
Our next question is from John. How do you explain your decision to move forward when 83% of the Nextdoor participants who have commented about this issue are strongly against the addition of bike lanes and the removal of driving lanes?
I mean, that's not really well, first off, we also have a lot of people who are proponents of this. Just because it's on Nextdoor doesn't necessarily mean that that's the true case of what the consensus is. However, it's not. Right now we have excess capacity on a roadway that you're basically there's the lanes there can travel. You can have the same amount of traffic travel one lane that you could have two. So, and actually, it's well within the range to have one lane of travel in each direction. Most of the time, your intersections are what's going to control your traffic. So that's wherever there's intersections, that's where congestion is created. As long as the intersections remain the same, you're not going to have a big increase in any kind of congestion there. Yeah, it's like this is a long-range project. We've been looking at this since 2012 in order to provide cross peninsula access from one side to the other for pedestrians, for bicyclists, and for any other mobility devices such as scooters or anything else that can actually use a bike lane by state law.
Charles is asking why he can't view this on an Apple device.
Yeah, I saw that. He said he actually got the screen said that. So there's nothing restricting Apple devices on that, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. That's a technical like question for the, I guess, go-to meeting, but I'm not sure why that would be showing up.
Yeah, we're actually hosting the webinar on an Apple device, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure what's going on with that one.
Okay. Doug would like to know about Euclid. One lane creates a huge congestion as we currently see on MacDill and Euclid. Density has increased tremendously and added many new cars, which justifies keeping 2 lanes, not reducing it to 1. What justification and evidence do you have to justify 1 lane? Insofar, this is counterintuitive and violates common sense. Furthermore, this reduces hurricane evacuation capacity.
All right. So this isn't. I don't believe this is an evacuation route, but well, I know it's not. But it's not. I mean, I know that you need to get to the evacuation route on that. But the 1 lane of traffic here, it's not going to increase the hurricane evacuation from just the local roads in that neighborhood trying to get to an evacuation route. The evacuation routes are clogged because everybody's going onto the arterials from the entire city.
Cal,
That's it. What's that?
Well, what I was going to add to what you're saying before you go on to the next thought is the corridor width is still the same. It's still 20 feet of pavement. So when there's an evacuation, there's no bicyclists out there. They're using all 20 feet of that roadway, and the vehicles will use all 20 feet of that roadway.
Right, and yeah, that's the other thing too. That they still have the pavement's still there. The density has increased. The traffic from when we looked, I mean, the numbers from 2012 to 2018 didn't increase that much. It's basically in that area. You do have extra densification, but it's pretty built out already. So even if you were to, I think almost almost double this time, or like 2.5 times the amount of traffic there, you're still within the acceptable range for 1 lane of traffic. So you would have to have an increase. And the other thing on this, that congestion only happens for 2 hours a day, or maybe 3 hours a day. You're only talking about peak hours between AM and PM. The congestion outside of that is not there. So in the other 22, 21 hours a day that you have a lot of speeding. You have a lot of vehicles that are going extremely fast down there because there's nothing to control that speed. So if we can model for peak hour and it works for peak hour, then it's going to work for all the other hours throughout the day as well. And then I didn't want to skip over, I think Doug had another question as well about traffic citations. I don't have any records of traffic citations or safety violations on that, but we do have crash data. So, and we can provide that in the chat, but the crash data, I can look at that right now.
Yeah, we did pull up the crash data from like the last 7 years. And so along the entire corridor, from Omar down to like Bayshore, so that's a 2.2 mile stretch of a corridor. We had El Prado is averaging about like 35 crashes per year.
Yeah, we had 74 injury and 8 serious injury at that time too, which is a pretty good amount, and a whole lot of angle crashes apparently. So, and the other thing about this too, 189 of them were daylight. Most of the time you see a lot of the crashes at nighttime, but there's a lot of daytime crashes here as well. All right, I'm sorry, Christine, if you want to continue. I just wanted to cover that one.
Okay. The next question is from Diana. At the Dale Mabry intersection, will there be 3 lanes, right turn only, straight only, and left turn only? Without a separate right only turn lane, El Prado will back up just like Euclid and will likely take multiple lights to go through.
Chris, is that your section on Dale Mabry?
It's mine. Christine, can you read it again?
Sure. At the Dale Mabry intersection, will there be 3 lanes? Right turn only, straight only, and left turn only. Without a separate right only turn lane, El Prado will back up just like Euclid and will likely take multiple lights to go through.
Okay, so I'm going to assume we're talking eastbound. There's eastbound direction and westbound direction, and I don't remember the question identifying which direction we're going. But in the eastbound direction, yes, there will be a right only, a through, and a left only. There's enough pavement in there to include the bike lane between the right turn lane and the through traffic eastbound direction. On westbound, you're showing westbound right there, and you can see that there is a left turn lane for westbound and a through and a right.
Yeah, it's just not showing the proposed striping, but in that area, the lane calls, there'll be 3 lanes. We can't have 2 through lanes anymore, so it'd be a right only, like you said in the question, a left, a through, and a right only.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next question is from Tom. Can you explain why the utility pole can't be removed from the sidewalk?
Okay, I'll take that one. So the utility poles, if you go to that, yes. So those 5 utility poles that are shown on the screen, if you look up the bar that's holding the electrical wiring is kind of a T type of utility pole, not an L type of utility pole. It's a T, and that pole is in the middle of the sidewalk because that T has to stay within the city's right-of-way. You can't aerially encroach outside of the city's right-of-way. So if that pole were to be moved to the outside, to the edge of the sidewalk, the outside edge of the sidewalk, the connection of the wiring would have to be relocated. What we have found is that there's also underground utilities in this location. So that's the reason these particular poles do not have an L-shaped connection for the cabling. They have a T-style connection because of the underground utilities. If you go west of this location, you'll notice that the poles are on the back of the sidewalk, and the full width of the sidewalk is available. But so the main reason we can't move it is underground utilities would get in our way, and we can't encroach onto aerial right-of-way.
Right. Yeah, ideally we would be able to, but sometimes we don't have a solution with the project.
Okay, the next question is from Doug. I and my friends ride thousands of miles around here, and none of us ride in the middle of a lane just because you paint a picture of a bike in the middle of the lane. We consider this suicide. Your assumptions are not realistic for people who really ride bikes. Give the money to the school teachers.
Okay. Well, I'll address the last part of that. First off, whether we do a bike lane or a vehicle lane, it doesn't really affect the costs. It's still paint. It is what it is. The majority of your costs are going to be the sidewalk and the roadway. However, plus we can't give it to the school teachers, although I'm all for giving them more money. So as far as the bike lane is concerned, I would almost ask, well, where do you ride? Because if you're a serious biker, I'm sure you're not on the sidewalk. So if you're a serious biker, are you in the travel lane? Because right now, that's where you would ride. Like right now, you would be riding in that outside lane as a serious biker. So putting paint, I understand that that's some things that, like, you know, we're limited in what we can do because of the driveways and because of the vehicles actually need to use them. And we will be protecting the bike lane in areas where they have intersections, where they have any place that we can actually put long stretches of delineators or bike curb. We are looking at that right now. But so it will be protected in areas where we can fit that. But I mean, as serious bikers go, I don't know of any serious bikers that actually ride on a sidewalk. I think most of them actually ride in the travel lane. this would be a dedicated lane for a biker. So I don't really understand the question there.
And Cal, to elaborate about the transferring the funds to the teachers, just to be clear to the audience, the funding is for transportation improvement and it's allocated for this purpose. We can't arbitrarily, the city can't arbitrarily decide to take the money and put it elsewhere.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, the next comment is from Tom. He says it's lots of great stuff and happy to see it. The next question is from Diana. Where are the lawn trucks and service providing trucks going to park when serving homes along El Prado?
In the bike lane. We covered that in both presentations, this one and last one. But I'm glad that the question got brought up because I do want to make sure that people understand that. This is a good graphic kind of showing there is a few options for bailout for the cyclist to either go up one of the driveway aprons and then get around the garbage waste collection or whatever delivery vehicle, lawn service. The other way they can actually go through is into the travel lane. But I also want to expound on this right now. That's what they do now. They park in the travel lane. It's just if you're a vehicle in that travel lane, you go around them in the travel lane. It's no different than being in a car traveling in that existing outside lane. You would have to go around that vehicle. Bikes actually have a little bit more options because they can use the sidewalk.
The next question is from Tapan. For residents that live on El Prado, will the bike lane be allowed to be used for street parking? And will that be all day or during certain times of the day?
Now, bike lanes are vehicle lanes. So just like any other vehicle lane, you can't park in it.
Okay, the next question is from Christopher. One of the biggest vehicle challenges at El Prado and Manhattan is the left turn lane. With moving to a single lane each way, are you looking to change the traffic light pattern to support the left-hand turns at this intersection?
Yeah, this is in your segment, Chris, but I believe you are putting back, this is at Manhattan. I believe you are putting back the left turn lanes.
We are. Yeah, now we're not impacting the number of lanes at the intersection.
Yeah, and that is something we can look at too. And in fact, when you do go down from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, I should say, that is something that you have to look at. It's called signal timings, just to make sure that you get everybody to queue through. Most of the time, what happens is instead of queuing in 2 lanes at these intersections, if there isn't a through lane to accept them on the other side anymore, the queue is the same amount of vehicles, it's just longer. So, and making sure that they have ways to get into those lanes and the lanes are long enough to actually get into the turn lanes so they can make their movements is important. So that's a good point, and that is something that we can adjust with the project or after too, because we do have the ability to actually go out there and adjust it on an as needed basis.
Hey, Chuck, can you go to slide 29? Since there's a question about left turn lane, I'll just highlight this real quick. So in the case of not having an existing left turn lane, we're creating one by using that inside lane, and then that outside lane becomes a shared lane between the vehicles and the bicyclists. So in the case, what is shown on the screen here, Concordia happens to be one of those roadways that leads up to the Roosevelt Elementary School, and it tends to back up. And so we have accommodated that by creating these left turns and right turns, and then with an adjacent share lane next to it, so it doesn't block the traffic.
The next question is from Stephen. Is there a way to know if the tree in our front yard will be removed?
If we are removing some trees for sidewalk, if that tree is within 20 feet of the within 15 or 20 feet of the roadway, what we have been doing is we've been trying to meander around the trees. Okay, so in most cases, we're not removing trees, we're going around them. I would gladly offer if you could send us an email to the El Prado email address, letting us know which address you live at, and we would be able to determine if that particular tree will need to be removed or not. Keep in mind, okay, so what's showing on the screen, this red box here, even though it may appear that that is your property all the way up to the roadway, it's actually city property. So any landscape or any trees or any kind of improvement that you may have done within this red area is actually the city's property. So we are trying not to remove any trees, but in some cases we can't avoid it. Send us an email with your email address, and we'll coordinate with you.
Yeah, I'll go a little bit further than that too. Bruno and Chris, whenever we have trees that are like, if you project the property lines out to even though they're in the right of way, but it's in what they would consider their front yard, we should, if we can just log those, and then the city can take on that role to go alert and everything like that. So,
perfect.
So that people understand that a tree in front of their house has to be removed, even if it's not on their property.
And one other thing to consider too is we're also incorporating some alternative sidewalk materials to minimize root disturbance to some of the trees out there. So like Bruno said, we're going to meander around trees as we can, and also incorporate some other materials so we minimize that root disturbance in those tree protective zones.
Yeah, we don't want to remove trees. I mean, we consider them transportation assets also because they do promote alternative modes as well, and some air quality, everything. So traffic calming.
Okay, the next question is from Amy. There is a lot of new home construction along El Prado with construction vehicles parked along the road very often. Where will those vehicles park under this plan?
They shouldn't be parking in the lane now, so I would assume that they would probably park in the bike lane illegally, just like they park in the vehicle lane illegally right now. Legally, they're not supposed to do either of those. So it's really, it's one of those things where they're doing something illegal right now. This project has nothing to do with whether or not people are still going to do illegal stuff. So we're not making that any worse or better.
Pardon me, I've lost my place.
Daniel Dixon.
Give me a moment to get back to where I was.
Sure.
Okay.
.623, the first 623 one that we received.
Yes, I'm sorry, my computer is not scrolling appropriately.
I'll read this one while you get caught up. Daniel Dixon says, "Thank you so much. You guys have nailed it. My only wish is to incorporate design features that enforce a no truck zone. All in all, excellent proposal. Speeders are going to hate it." All right, are you caught up again, Christine?
I am. Thank you for your patience.
Yep.
This question is from Liness. Is the distance from the street to the homeowner's yard for the sidewalk? I don't understand the question. It's not clear.
So yes, okay. So there's a portion. I don't know exactly how much, and I think El Prado has about 80 or 100 feet right away.
100 feet, yeah.
So do you know generally what the back of curb to the property line is?
Yeah. So it's fairly easy to calculate because each roadway is 20 feet from curb to curb. The median is approximately 10. So you've got 50 feet from curb to curb. And on either side, you've got an equal distribution. So that's why I said it's somewhere between 15 to 20, and in some cases, even more than 20 feet from the curb to the city's right-of-way line. So there's quite a bit of space there for a sidewalk. And so what we've done is, again, we're utilizing that space as best we can to minimize any impacts to your property.
If you do a Google search for Hillsborough County property appraiser, you can actually punch in your address and do a search for your actual address or even your homeowner name. And up will come your tax card, and you can have access to their map feature. And on their map feature, there's a way you can actually measure the distance over an aerial. It's not the most accurate, but it is very close. It's close enough for probably your purposes. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So, but right now we're not taking out, the roadway is staying where it's staying for the most part. The curb staying where it's staying. The sidewalk will be placed on what is currently grass between the back of curb and your property line. So it's called right of way, but it's in the grass area that already exists there.
Yeah, Chuck, if you go to page sheet 20, slide 20, it's actually showing that there's a 20 to 30 foot. And that makes sense because the corridor is about 50 feet and on each side would be around 25 feet to make up for the 100 foot from right of way to right of way.
The next question is from Jim. Looking at the data presented, there appears to be very little, if any, current bike usage. We don't build a road unless there is a measurable demand for it. Do you have any analysis to show what the demand will be for biking? Has there been any analysis on this? And if not, why not?
All right, I have two. Right now, we do have analysis for the vehicles, and we have too much road for the vehicles out there. So right now, that's why you're seeing speeding and everything like that. You said we wouldn't build a road if it's not needed. Well, we have a road that has excess capacity on it already. So we already did that. We've done that throughout all of our lives. That's been the problem with the transportation system for the last 50 years, is that we're increasingly building travel lanes and we can't accommodate that traffic anymore. That is why our system is blowing up. The only way to switch out of that is to encourage other modes, and the only way to switch out of that is to encourage modes by means of having safe bikeways, safe pedestrian features, things like that. The other thing I would say is you don't build a bridge where you see people swimming through a river. So if no one's going to cross a river if there's no bridge there right now. Same thing, people aren't going to ride on a bike lane that they don't feel comfortable on. They're going to find another route. They'll ride on the side street. The problem with this area in South Tampa is that you have two pretty big barriers, or three in some parts of South Tampa, where you have the CSX corridor, which doesn't always stay right up next to the Selman. You have the Selman Expressway, and you have Dale Mabry Highway. So those three barriers kind of control which bike lanes are actually useful. This is one of the streets that actually goes through underneath the barrier of the expressway, the Selman Expressway there. That's why it's critical to get a bike connection on this one corridor.
The next question is from Emily. The plan includes a sidewalk on the north side of El Prado, which would include a crossing over the CSX tracks. CSX has been an uncongenial partner in other locations. Are they expressing support and cooperation for this project?
You want me to take that one, Cal?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so we have already coordinated with CSX, and I can appreciate the comment because if we encroach onto railroad property, it does become extremely challenging. But we're not encroaching anything with the railroad. We are connecting a sidewalk. We're putting in the same sort of asphalt sidewalk that's on the south side across those tracks, and they are in favor of moving forward with that. There's no impact to their arms, their gates. There's no changes to their configuration as dictated or proposed in our design. So there's no additional cost that they would have to bear for these improvements.
Yeah, and Emily, I know which one you're referring to as well, and I will add to this. They're not anti-crossing or anti-sidewalk. It's just CSX is like dealing with the city in some ways. I know y'all probably all had experiences trying to get permits and stuff like that. It's just it's a big system. Excuse me. All right, sorry, there was a fire truck down there. It's a big bureaucracy. There's a lot of different things that go in. So it does slow down projects, but we're doing the coordination early. So that's a good thing. Hopefully we don't have another scenario like we did last time, but I don't think we will on this one. The design team did a really good job of trying to minimize the crossing distance there, and so that CSX will feel happy with it.
Our next question is from Timothy. Similar improvements have not slowed traffic on Euclid. Years later, improved plans were used to make similar improvements along Clark near El Prado. How will the changes to El Prado be any different? What has the city's consultants done to learn from past similar challenges on nearby roadways?
So on Euclid, we didn't do similar improvements. On Euclid, we did a Sharrow bike lane, which is basically a little sign on the road that says, has a little bike and has the Sharrows. We have an area here that we have to do that because we don't have actual space for the bike lane. That would not help anything. When there's no cars parked there, and that's what Euclid was, they have parking on either side of the road. The reason why we didn't put a bike lane there was because to maintain the parking on either side of the road. When there is no car parked there, you have an 18-foot wide through lane. Wide lanes equal speeding because there's nothing there. So the peak hours where you don't see a lot of vehicles parked on the road, there is a ton of speeding. Not there when there's actually traffic, but when there's no traffic, you see a ton of speeding on Euclid, and I understand that. So what we're doing with this project is we are limiting lane sizes quite a bit. We are limiting the lane width to actually 10 feet. The buffered bike lane, where we can fit it, will have some vertical delineation as well. And then we also have vertical deflection. In the term, vertical deflection just means a speed table. It's just a fancy word for a speed table or something like that. Anytime the roadway goes up and down. So we will be doing some of that in some areas as well. And I do want to say, when we went to, we did a project recently. We did a few projects, and they're both around South Tampa area, Harbor Island and Davis Boulevard. And if y'all have driven off of Davis Boulevard over the bridge to get off the island recently, you probably come across a raised crosswalk that was there. Harbor Island has the same thing. And that was a city design that we did that has worked really well. And on Harbor Island, a speed table is a whole lot less aggressive than a speed hump. And you'll see speed humps on, like, a Zeal is a good example of a speed hump. On Harbor Island, they had the most aggressive speed humps I've ever seen in my life. If you drove over those things over like 10 miles an hour, your head would hit the ceiling. And I was a little worried when the city put in, we got rid of the speed humps and replaced it with the speed table. I was a little worried about the speeding coming back. But what we've noticed is actually the speeds have gone down, and the speeding complaints have gone down too, because people don't slow down to almost a stop at the speed hump and then accelerate like crazy and then hit the brakes and then over the next one and then do the same thing. So people might not even be speeding, but the acceleration, people think, oh wow, they're going really fast down the road. With the speed tables, they can take it at a nice even clip, and you can take it close to about 20 miles per hour. That's about it. And then once you get over it, people don't accelerate like crazy to get to the next one. So I think these are going to work really well, and I know they've worked well in other locations.
Our next question is from Christine. Can you please review the bicycle network connectivity, how to transfer from one facility to another, and wayfinding, especially at church?
Yeah, we are looking at wayfinding altogether, and our planning group is going to be leading that. And it's going to be coordinated with our Bike Boulevard program as well. So it's better off to do it, as you know, it's a network, and that's what we're trying to build. It's better off to do it holistically and not look at it from corridor to corridor. So currently, with the capital programs that we have programmed right now, we've been putting like kind of no wayfinding in, and knowing that we will add that later once we have like a full wayfinding system.
Our next question is from Tim. Why not just make the right lanes Sharrow lanes the entire length of El Prado instead of designating those lanes as only for bikes, since only 23 bikes use El Prado on average each day?
Because that doesn't do anything for to increase the level of safety for the cyclists. A shower lane is still a vehicle lane. The only thing that we can do here, designating a bike lane, is a method to actually encourage cycling. It is a method for traffic calming. It is a method. There's been the widest study ever done. Roads with bike lanes are safer for vehicles. That's the other thing. And when people have installed bike lanes on road, it actually makes the vehicle traffic a lot safer as well. So they're a known commodity. A Sharo doesn't do any of that.
The next question is from Christine. Can a person on a bike reach the RRFB button on Bayshore without getting off the bike?
I don't, Christine, we could look at maybe a secondary button, but it's the way those crosswalks have to go, it's gonna be very hard to locate that. This is gonna be very similar to the one on Aline, but I would think that if you were on you see that there is a ramp there on the other side, on the water side of Bayshore. As a cyclist, I'd probably go through and not use the RRFB, but we can look at a secondary button. We are doing that on some of our bike boulevards as well. But it would be a bunch of 90-degree turns to even use that crosswalk, to be completely honest. So we have to make it like that because of the ADA slopes. We have to do that little zigzag just like we did in the other locations of Bayshore.
Carol Ann is asking, at El Prado and Bayshore, will there be a sidewalk installed on the median of Bayshore Boulevard?
Yes, you can't see it under the tree, but it's there. It zigzags across. If you follow the line work, just if you can kind of imagine a Z going across there.
Go to the previous slide. You won't have to imagine it. Chuck, go a couple slides ahead of this.
And we are looking at the side of the road to put that crosswalk on, whether to do it on the north side or the south side of El Prado. We have a few different opinions on that. So, oh yeah, you can kind of see it to the side there. There you go. That white line.
The reason we did this is that median has a fairly steep slope. And so for ADA users, it exceeds the allowable slope. So by doing it this way, we're able to meet a very desirable and very gentle slope for folks to walk across the median to the other side.
Next question is from Kristen. She wants to know how the Sharo lanes are intended to be used on weekends or non-school days.
It would be the only travel lane. So unfortunately, and we didn't want to. We understood the issue with the school pickup and drop off. We know there's a lot of school queuing in there. So you can't design for everything, but when we started looking at all the different options there, we really didn't have much that we could do besides just drop that into a share lane for that one stretch and then add the left turn lane. We're still going to look at some ways to see how we can make that transition as safe as possible, but on any weekend days it will just be like a standard travel lane, just like it is on a weekday.
Has any consideration been given to completing this project without reducing the number of lanes or not installing bike lanes? That question's from Kimberly.
No, we're resurfacing the roadway, so we had to design the striping and the final striping now.
Christopher is asking, bicycles avoid El Prado because the road surface is so poor. I never ride on El Prado. So I guess that's more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, well, we're resurfacing the roadway so that it isn't poor. This portion of the project started. The reason why this project got programmed was two reasons: the walk bike plan, and then also maintenance need. We had significant maintenance need on this roadway, so we'll be going through there and fixing up all the pavement so it's nice and brand new.
Okay. This comment is from Michelle. To get a cyclist to use bike lanes, they need to be protected more than just by paint. Flat is just paint. Physical barriers make a huge difference to make people safe. Can we add some vertical poles? Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to look at that. We have to maintain the needs of the residents, and that includes the pickup and drop, or not pickup and drop off, but the garbage pickup and any things like that. There's a few products that we're interested in using, and I'm going to tell you one other thing, just because Platt has two issues with it. One, the parking's on the wrong side of the bike lane, and two, it isn't protected. But we are fixing both of those issues with our build project. So it's another project that we're very excited about, but we will be fixing Platt, because when we designed that, it was before I was here, but the standards didn't allow for the parking protected bike lane. So, but now that they do, we have a good chance for a redo on that project. But on this one, especially at intersections where we have a lot of conflicts, and that's, intersections are always the most dangerous areas. If you look at the crash data, it's always clusters on most projects, always clusters by intersections and things like that. So we will be looking for areas where we can add some hardening, delineators or bike curb, maybe concrete, or some of the polycarbonate. I think this is actually, the one here is recycled asphalt, or not, rubber tire, recycled rubber tire.
This next question is from Susan. The RRFBs seem too much. I think we do need to remember that El Prado is a neighborhood first. Have you all asked residents how they feel about this? I live on El Prado and I know I haven't been asked.
I mean, the RRFBs, we're placing them at areas where they have like a lot of crossings and attractors for people, or reasons for people to cross at those locations. The RFBs, they work really well. They have a much higher yield rate than a standard crosswalk. So, and as we've been employing them throughout the city, they work better now than they did back when people didn't understand what they were. So, no, I mean, we're not here, we don't ask every individual resident of the street that's what the point of the public meeting is. But yeah, generally, they are, for people who use the roadway, we're not just looking at the residents of one street, we're looking at all users of the corridor. So it's not necessarily the residents' call there, it's for the safety of the entire community.
Doug has a comment. South Tampa people ride bikes to work. Not at all. I don't care what the mayor's vision is. I think
I can point to quite a lot of people who actually ride to work. So I don't know what he's saying there, but anyway. I actually saw some guy on Bayshore on an electric bike in a business suit, and I was driving next to him. I clocked him at 25 miles per hour. I was pretty impressed, and he was in the bike lane of Bayshore.
This next comment is from Diana. There is a safe bike lane along Euclid. Do any of you live in Tampa in the summer? It is not safe to bike in the summer. The temperature's in the 90s and humidity nearly at 90%.
There is no safe bike lane. There is no bike lane on Euclid. So there is no safe bike lane on Euclid, because there's not one. A bike lane doesn't exist on Euclid. It's a Sharo, it's a travel lane, it's a vehicular lane, it's not a bike lane. Yeah, we all live in Tampa, and I understand the comfort level it's hot. El Prado is a very good corridor because it is shaded. So that was one of the things that is attractive for a bike lane. That's why we don't want to take down trees or anything like that. We want to make sure that people have a nice, comfortable area to bike in as well.
Michelle just had a comment that next door is not a true sampling for surveys. This next comment is from Jim. Is any portion of the project's financing and or grant dependent on the creation of the bike lanes or reducing El Prado from 4 lanes to 2 lanes?
We have multimodal fees in here, and that is would be required to have some kind of multimodal or capacity improvement. But keep on going.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I answered that one.
Okay. This comment is from Tapan. What is the road volume from the 2018 study for Bay to Bay and for Euclid?
We don't have for Euclid, but the slide below shows we have 4,200 vehicles from Omar to Manhattan. Manhattan to Del Mabry is 9,000, and Del Mabry to MacDill is 5,600. And as you can see, the Federal Highway Administration, anything less than 10,000 ADT is a great candidate. Capacity will most likely not be affected whatsoever. So. And then on these, I just want to point out, you would have to double the first one to actually, not that you wouldn't even get to it. The second one would be close, but all of them, even if you double the traffic volumes on there, you're still in the good candidate range. Right. And then they say agencies should conduct a corridor analysis if they reach double your capacity. We already did the corridor analysis, even though we were at the one where they said you don't really need to do an analysis.
Johan has asked, what will be the location of the additional drains?
The drainage inlets?
Yes.
So on this project, we're not adding drainage inlets. We're modifying some of the ones that have been damaged. Chris, you tell me what you're doing on your segment, but all we're doing on this project is as it's shown on this slide here, we're regrading some areas to allow some of the ponding to flow better to the existing inlets, and we are replacing the inlet tops. Part of the reason we're not adding inlets is because, believe it or not, this corridor has a tremendously high amount of utilities on either side of the roadway, and the trunk line for these drainage pipes actually run across El Prado along the side streets. So in order to do additional inlets, it would increase the cost of this project significantly.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges we've had. But you can see in some of those pictures, there's some ponding that occurs in the intersections. I think the one there on the right side at the bottom is Ranelli. That'll be regraded so we can get better drainage across that intersection. We're doing the best we can with reprofiling some of the edges of pavement in order to move that water along the gutter line of the roadway. But like Bruno had mentioned, you know, there is a need for additional inlets. It's just that we don't have connectivity and nearby drainage systems that we can connect to. So adding additional inlets is really expensive, and major reprofiling of the roadway would really require reconstruction of the roadway, which really isn't within the budget. And
Chris, do you want to expand on any of the like, I know we got, especially in the business area, they were talking about how the area, the outside lane floods a lot there, but the solution to that problem really isn't this project. That the solution to that problem is a much bigger solution that it has nothing to do with anything that we do on this project, because they need that the water has no place to go, basically. So
right. Yeah, because a lot of the inlets that see these intersections, El Prado, a lot of it drains to side streets, and it might drain north or south to nearby inlets. So the frequency of the existing inlets along this corridor is minimal. And that's one of the challenges we have. We have larger basin areas that drain to infrequent inlets. So that's why you have the amount of ponding within the roadway. Now, the fortunate thing is by adding this bike lane and pushing the travel lane into the inside, you'll have less vehicles that actually have to drive through these ponding sections. Unfortunately, it will that ponding will remain in some areas. We can't fix every area, but we're doing our best to improve certain locations, and the ones you see here we've got some solutions for with regrading intersections where we can and setting new profiles along the roadway. But again, because of the infrequency of the inlets and because a lot of the systems occur off El Prado, it's difficult to channelize that water off to some of these areas.
Diana has a comment. She has to navigate to work among the vehicles and trailers. She says 2 lanes are necessary and bicyclists are few and far between.
Again, we're not removing the ability for the trailers to park like they do now. Both are illegal, but that's what they do now. So they still have the pavement space.
Chris is asking who will be responsible for relocating mailboxes on the north side of El Prado to build the sidewalk.
Are y'all expecting to have to do any mailbox relocations?
Yeah, there are some. There are some. Not all the mailboxes are going to be impacted because some of the mailboxes are closer to the roadway and our sidewalk is beyond that. So most of the mailboxes are not impacted, but there are a handful of mailboxes that will need to be relocated, and those are shown in our plans.
Yeah,
and it's done by the contractor.
And the contractor will work with the property owner and stuff like that as well. And the contractor will see where they can do it. I know that sometimes people build those really fancy mailboxes, which, if they're teaming it in, they might not be able to be moved. But the simple post mailbox is a pretty simple relocation.
This next comment is from Tim. If it is only 3 to 18 instead of 23, that makes the Sharrow the entire length of El Prado even more effective, as opposed to reducing vehicular lanes by 50%.
I don't understand the
Yeah, I don't either.
question.
I believe that 3 to 18 he was referencing to is like the bike counts.
Right, but what is 23?
I'm not sure what the 23 is.
I think there was a previous comment about 23 bicyclists using El Prado somewhere. Yeah, he had mentioned that since only 23 bikes use El Prado on average each day. I don't know where that number came from, but he's referencing back to some sort of traffic number that he pulled up. And so he's basically continuing a previous comment he made.
Yeah, and we've already addressed that one too.
Yeah.
Okay. This next comment is from Susan. How can we ensure that this project will not end up being like Euclid? Right now, people are speeding down El Prado, and right now people are speeding down Euclid. The improvements made on Euclid have done nothing to calm traffic.
I 100% agree with you. I think that's kind of, I've kind of answered this, but I think it's a good point to point out, if there's only several things that are actually going to slow people down. You can either do horizontal or vertical deflection. That's either putting in some kind of, like a roundabout is a horizontal deflection at an intersection, or chicane or something like that. Vertical deflection, speed tables, speed humps, raised intersections, that kind of thing. The other things, narrow your travel lanes. That's one way of getting some speed reduction. When we did Bayshore, we had an 8 mile per hour decrease in speeds on average when we narrow the travel lanes. The other thing that you can do is, and the biggest thing that you can do is restrict the vehicular lanes to match the capacity needs of the roadway. So if you have excess capacity, if you have more lanes than you need, you are inviting speeding because you give people options to speed. Wider pavements, people feel more able to speed and to drive faster, and then they can get around slower drivers. So that is one of the biggest reasons why ways to actually control speeds is to do that, is to take out the travel lane. On Euclid, you don't have anything like that. The only thing on Euclid that we did was paint a little symbol every 300 to 600 feet. That's all we did. We put a little symbol in the middle of the road. It actually wasn't even on the middle of the road. It was in the middle of the travel lane, or on the side of the travel lane. And there was no speed controls whatsoever on that road. We didn't add any kind of traffic calming. And when there aren't parked vehicles there, it is a free-for-all because you have an 18-foot wide lane. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do. The traffic calming is a huge portion of this, but removing that lane is going to be your biggest bang for your buck.
Our next comment is from Tapan. I think he's asking about the road volume from the 2018 study for Platt, Gandy, and Sean.
I'll have to think it was Sean. It's
That's
not
probably
Sean.
Swan. Is that Swan?
Yeah, I couldn't think of the one. I don't know. We might actually have some recent volumes on those roadways, but I'm not sure. I don't have that in the study. The study only looked at El Prado. However, I'm in the chat. I will put a link to a quick AADT guide that the Hillsborough TPO puts out, where they have actual counts, and you can kind of see what the various counts on each of the local roadways are. So it's pretty handy. They're not perfect. You're only meant to be used as kind of like a guide, but it does kind of show y'all how the roadways, how many vehicles are using the roadway per day. So I'll add that to the chat though, to everybody.
The next question is from Christine. Why is there a buffered yellow line space between the inside curb and the travel lane? Would that space be better devoted to space protecting people on bikes?
So here's the issue. Those trees are oak trees in the median. Right now, you might start seeing some reflective cracking over where the tree roots are coming up. After a while, even after we do this project, unless we remove those trees, which we don't want to do, you're going to start seeing cracking occur again. So we opted to have that inside shoulder. We can do it similar to the way we did on Bayshore, where we have RPMs or something like that added to it so that it has a little bit of tactile feel to it. But we didn't want the traffic volumes to go over, or all the vehicle tires to go over the tree lamp, the root area, because if you start doing that, you're going to tear up the pavement even worse. So, and we didn't want to remove the trees. So that's really the reason why we did it that
way. I apologize. Can someone read the next question for me? That whatever was submitted into the chat, I lost my list of questions.
Yes, give me one. I'm picking up the traffic counts report real quick, and I'm going to put that in, and I can read it.
I just sent that out, Cal, the Hillsborough TPO traffic counts.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
All right,
so
cool.
The next question is coming from Christine Acosta at 6:30. Why is there a buffered yellow line space between inside curb and travel lane?
We did that one.
After that, George.
If you're driving on certain portions of El Prado, there are trees in the medians restricting the driver's view of oncoming traffic. That means the driver will need to come to a complete stop before taking a left-hand turn, going in either direction. You mentioned congestion is at intersections. How has this been factored into your calculations on traffic flow? Well, the congestions, when I'm talking, it's signalized intersections is what I meant, not the unsignalized intersections. Signalized intersections are what cause, they have a, I think it's a 6-time impact upon traffic congestion. So you will have issues where you have people who are turning slow, left-hand turns from the roadway, but your traffic counts from each and every one of those individual movements is not that great. So if you can control the signalized intersections, then that's 90% of your battle right there. You might have to slow down for a vehicle here, and I'm sure people will go around those vehicles through the intersection and weave around them like they do now. So, I mean, if you're in the inside lane now and someone stopped in the inside lane, you would have to stop, I would assume. But you would go around them, correct? Well, in an intersection, you probably do the same thing, even though you shouldn't. But or just wait for the person to turn into the side street. But those are very few. There's not a lot of trips like that that actually go on each individual side street.
The next question is from Kimberly. Is there a scheduled city council or planning meeting where the proposed project will be discussed, reviewed, and voted on whether it proceeds?
No, this is the meeting, but this is the second public meeting that we had. There is no city council involvement in regards to what projects go or don't go.
The next comment is from Tim. Won't this restriction make more cars use Euclid than El Prado? And were residents on Euclid invited to this meeting?
So no, we get that question a lot too. And right now, like I said, you already have the capacity that to handle the road, to handle the volumes that you have with one lane. But if people would go out of their way, there's a reason why people are using El Prado instead of Euclid anyway, which only has one lane already. So what would be the advantage of going to Euclid over this one? That doesn't really make any sense right there. But people travel on a roadway more from just like they're not picking. It's not like they're picking individual traffic lanes or like which roadway has less traffic on it. I'm sure they do, but it's not like people are going to go out of their way to use Euclid instead of El Prado. But regardless, you don't get any advantage from going from one lane road to another one lane road. And we have the capacity here to handle the volumes that we have.
The next comment is from Sharon. Drainage affects flood insurance. Are you coordinating with FEMA? How can you improve drainage since elevation does not matter? We have seen the elevation factor in other recent storms does not matter.
Yeah, this is not a drainage project or anything like that that's going to get all we're trying to do is remove the puddles that exist after rainstorms off the road and into the system. This isn't going to improve overall drainage patterns of the area.
This next comment is from Liness. Some of us who live on El Prado have to do a U-turn to get into our driveways. How safe is this?
Yeah, you can still do that. It's the same way that you would do it right now. You probably would turn into the outside lane and then go back around into the other lane. So there's no issues there. It's going to be the same thing. You just look both ways, or you look down the street, make sure no one's coming by either car or bike, and then you would get into the bike lane a little bit and then go through. So you still have the same pavement width that you had there before. You'll still be able to operate your vehicle.
The next comment is from Tim. In January, concern was expressed about eastbound El Prado traffic in the left lane impacted by parents picking up students from the Academy of the Holy Names when they turn north onto MacDill. Did you address this concern?
It actually says, why didn't you address this concern? We didn't because there's no way to improve that, but this project doesn't make it worse. If you look at the intersection there, those lanes that are there are going to be there in the future. So we can't do anything about that backup for Holy Names. That intersection at MacDill, the laneage is going to stay the same. So we're not taking out any kind of lane there. So it's status quo. We're going to have a left turn lane and a through lane, a left and a through right. But I mean there's nothing that we can do for that. But we're not going to make it worse with this.
MacDill would need to be widened or improved. Something would have to happen on MacDill, not El Prado.
Or the school. Or the school
in order for El Prado to go through. I'm sorry, Cal?
Or the school would have to queue on site instead of in the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
This next is just a comment from Stephen that is not a right turn lane on westbound El Prado at Dale Mabry.
It's
not Christine, I sent you an email, Christine. If you can share that on your screen. So the comment is saying that is not a right turn lane, and rightfully so. It's not a right turn lane today. What I was saying in an earlier response is that it will be a right turn lane. because think about the receiving lane on the other side. The receiving lane on the other side will be a bike lane, right? So that outside lane westbound will have to be a right turn lane. There we go.
There you go.
So that's the proposed condition. So you'll have a right turn lane in both directions and a left turn lane in both directions. Thanks, Christine.
Okay, this next question is from Tapan. If one cannot park on the side or bike lane, then can people park in the median?
No, they can't. We're not doing anything that we have not changing the parking restrictions on El Prado at all with this project. You're not supposed to be parking in the travel lane right now. You're not supposed to be parking in the median right now. So that we're not adding parking. We're not losing parking. There is no parking on El Prado. So the parking questions are confusing because we don't have any parking on El Prado. So besides the stuff that we're actually adding by the business areas of the business district.
Okay, this next comment is from Tom. This is a massive improvement. Yes, there's more that could be done, such as moving the utility pole, but this will go a long way towards making our streets safer for everyone. Next, we have a comment from Christine. Good answer, Cal, to the serious bicyclist, but don't forget to convey the reduced vehicle speeds are what make Sharrows safe.
Yeah, she means like you can do Sharrows if you have reduced vehicle speed. So if you traffic calm, we have a project like that on Columbus where we didn't put bike lanes in favor of widening the sidewalk and really reducing the travel lanes to a really and adding parking. And we kept the Sharrows on the roads instead of the bike lanes. And we had other reasons for that, but it was the reduced speeds that made the Sharrow safe. And that's also why we're not really concerned about the Sharrows in the brick area, because the speeds are reduced just from the nature of that roadway.
This next comment is from Anita. Thank you for the traffic calming and bike lanes. Will there also be median landscaping as part of this project?
We don't have, no median landscaping as part of this project.
No.
Do we have anything in as far as that?
We have very little landscape. In the commercial district, there's a little bit of landscape going to be proposed, but
Right.
No additional landscape in the median. But the good thing is, like Cal said before, we're not removing anything. So we're not removing this beautiful canopy of oak trees throughout the median. So we're not adding, but we're not subtracting. Chris, you've got a little bit in your segment, right?
We do, just from where we're changing some of the configuration of the roadway there with adding some islands on the outside. So we're incorporating some parking along El Prado in that commercial section. And where we do, we'll have terminal islands on the ends of the parking stalls. So those are the only areas that we can actually incorporate.
Chuck, it's the commercial district slides, which is 17 and 18.
So yeah, so where you see some of those green islands there between Coolidge and Hubert, those will be areas where we can incorporate some trees and some landscaping.
This next comment is from Christopher. The comment about serious bikers and the travel lane is about riding in the middle of the travel lane. We would ride on the right side of the travel lane.
Which is what you're supposed to do, but all right. So let me refer back to his past comment was, I would never ride in the bike lane because it's just paint. So you would rather not ride in a buffered bike lane because it's only paint, but you would ride in a travel lane that has not even paint in the same vehicular lane. I mean, that might just be you. I don't understand that thought process, but there are areas where we have to do the Sharrow, but if there's a buffered bike lane, I think that would be most people's preference to ride in rather than a vehicular lane.
This next comment is from William. Great idea. My twin daughters and I are looking forward to using this. Can't wait. We have a comment from Carol Ann. This is a great project. I'm very excited about it. When will construction start and when do you expect it to be finished?
That's on your last slide, Christine, Chuck. Or second to last slide.
Let's see if I can bring it up too.
There we go. So February of 2024 is we anticipate construction to begin.
Yeah, so by the way, a construction advertisement does not mean you'll see vehicles out there for quite some time after February, because then we have to bid it, and then it's like a 3-month process before it goes to council and all this other stuff and gets approved. So, and then they have to go through permitting. So I imagine, let's just say late spring, early summer of 2024. And they are going to be constructed consecutively, or at the same time, concurrently. These were phased at one point. That's why we have 2 different consultants, but they were phased in different years, and DOT was able to accommodate us and move it all into 1 year.
This next comment is from Christine. Disabled persons will be expected to detour to the sidewalk on the south side to access Bayshore. Will an additional crosswalk on the south side to Bayshore, or will disabled person have to cross El Prado again?
Yeah, we're looking at that. Christine, we don't know on Bayshore. We may be looking at the north side. There's a difference of opinion there from a couple different people here on what the safest way to go is. Originally, it was proposed for the north side, then it got moved to the south side. But I kind of agree with you there too. Anybody who's using a wheelchair would have to cross twice. And it is I don't know if the crosswalk on Bayshore is on the brick section, but the other section, it's brick. It's not the greatest place to cross on and everything like that. So we'll look into that. And but yeah, currently the way the design is, they would have to cross twice if you're utilizing a wheelchair, or if you just want to cross at the crosswalks. Strollers.
Yeah, she had a future clarifying question to that, so I think you answered it, but it was in regards to the detour on the north side, so she corrected her question. But I think you answered her future question.
This next comment is from Jim. Has there been any analysis on what the reduction of lanes will do to traffic on Bay to Bay and Euclid? Have you looked at crash data for either of these streets? And have you considered the cost of what diverting traffic onto those roads will do to the crash data on those streets?
Yeah, we've looked at Bay to Bay. We had the same idea proposed for that one too, because the crash data, and they can accommodate a 3-lane section, just like this road would accommodate a 2-lane section. So the difference in the 3-lane is that they have a left turn lane, and that's standard what you would do for a 4 to 3 lane conversion. So in fact, we're looking at revisiting the section of Bay to Bay between Manhattan and I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Dale Mabry right now. So
the next question is from Kimberly. How many trees in total are projected to be removed with this project?
Well, can we get back to y'all on that one? And then I think because we don't have totals right now, and then it also, I like that idea of kind of notifying the residents that live, or if there's a tree in front. And by the way, just to make a clarification, we'll have to, there's some bushes and stuff like that we don't consider trees, that even they might grow a little tall, but it's not like a tree. But we'll try to see if there's anything significant being removed because of the sidewalk. Do y'all have any grand trees or anything like that y'all know
of? So I'm looking at plans. We've got a couple live oaks that we're removing, a couple crepe myrtles.
Do you know the size of the live oaks?
Live oaks is These are fairly large, 30-inch.
All right, we'll have to look at that. But we can get back with we can put the tree table. Once we have a tree exhibit kind of showing the address and then everything else, then maybe we'll just put that on the website and contact the homeowners, because I know that's a concern.
In the west segment, there's no grand trees that are coming out. Most of the trees are a little smaller. Anyway, I think there's roughly looks like a total of about 10 trees in the west segment, but a good portion of them are small trees in the 5 to 7 inch range. No grand trees in the west segment.
Okay.
The next question is a clarification for an earlier question from Christine. Disabled persons will be expected to detour to the north side near Bay Shore. Will an additional crosswalk be added to the north side to access Bay Shore, or will a person have to cross El Prado again to access Bay Shore?
We would likely maintain one and not do an additional crossing on the north side. Whether that crossing that we're looking at designing is going to stay on the south side of the north side, that's to be determined. But I don't think we're going to plan on doing two separate ones.
Yeah, we wouldn't do two.
You can do them they have them at intersections, but the problem that we have, Christine, is that the ADA, you would have, if you coordinate these two, then you have two separate jogs on that. So downtowns and stuff like that, sometimes you have two crosswalks going at one intersection, and the signals are coordinated, like the flashers go off at the same time. But here, it with the timings would be pretty hard to keep up with. All right.
This next question is from Carol Ann. Can we download this PowerPoint presentation? When will this video be posted? What website will it be posted to? Is the video from the first public meeting posted anywhere?
Yeah, all of it's on our El Prado website, the El Prado project. Easiest way to get there, go to City of Tampa, the main page, and in the search button or search window, just say Prado or El Prado, and you'll see the capital project pop up. We do have the video for the first. We do have the presentation from the first one. We'll be adding this in a couple of days whenever we get it downloaded. And then the presentation is actually in the chat or in the handout section on the right of your screen right now. If you drop that down, the little triangle, you should be able to see handouts, and they should have the presentation there. But we will be posting that to the website as well.
This next question is from Kristen. Is there a reason why the right turn lanes east and westbound at Dale Mabry cannot be combined right turn and straight lanes?
You want to go with that one?
Yeah, because of the bike lane. If you want to show that again, Christine, the design that I sent. So if that right turn lane is a right and through combined, first of all, what it would do is it would sandwich in the bicyclist. If you're traveling westbound and you're on that right leg of Dale Mabry, traveling westbound, that bicyclist would be sandwiched in between two lanes of traffic, and we can't do that. But more importantly, if that outside lane is a right and through, that through lane now lines up with the bike lane that's across the street, across Dale Mabry. There's only one receiving lane on the other side of Dale Mabry, and so we can only have one through lane on that westbound direction. Likewise, in the eastbound direction, same thing. We've got one lane, not a through and a right, because there's only one receiving end on the other side.
And let me add to that though, Bruno, because she might be asking why do we need a right turn lane, and why can't we just have a through right and use that outside lane as a bigger bike lane or something? So just on that one, if that's the case, then the right turn lane helps at that. Remember how I said the intersections are what control the capacity of the roadway? Having those turn lanes, it's called the narrow lengths, wide nodes. What you do on the links, the linear sections, you can keep those narrow. When you get to the intersection, you want a wide node, and that means that you allow movements in all directions. So that helps out traffic tremendously to have those turn lanes so that you can get into. So just in case she was asking why they needed a right turn lane there, I just wanted to answer that too.
This next comment is from Diana. New sidewalks are great, speed tables and crosswalks are great, new pavement is great, but new bike lane is a terrible idea. It feels like the city is adding the bike lane to claim we are green, which in Florida heat is simply not realistic most of the year.
Yeah, it's just a comment. There's no question there. We can keep them going.
The next comment is from Carol Ann. Will the sidewalks on the south side of El Prado be repaired and will any gaps be filled in?
Yes. Yeah, both of those are true.
Michelle has a thank you comment. It's a well thought out plan. The next comment is from Charles. Are all plans decided? As an owner of 2 buildings, I may want more detail regarding parking entry access becoming limited to employees and customers.
If there's an individual building, you can feel free to contact us directly. We can get with you if there's something that you see there. If we need to tweak the design, the overall design, this is what we're planning on going with. But if there's individual concerns about access, yeah, just let us know, and we can tweak it to make sure that your concerns are met. We're at 60%. Right now, so we have time to tweak the designs to accommodate everybody if they have access concerns.
Our next comment is from Jake. As someone very excited about the traffic calming, how concerned should we be that we will get our hopes up only to be let down like Bay to Bay project?
The Bay to Bay project, the traffic volumes in Bay to Bay were 14,000, I believe, or maybe close to 18,000. This is a 5,000 to 9,000 vehicle per day corridor. It's a completely different animal than the other one. And then, you know, additionally, there's, I mean, we've been charged to really rethink our transportation system, and we cannot build our roadways out of traffic anymore. We're past that point. It's basically the only way to solve congestion in the city is to get smart and to look at other modes such as transit, cycling, and walking. There is no magic bullet to fix the traffic in Tampa, but I'm going to tell you, adding lanes is not it, and it does not fix traffic. It just doesn't. It just moves congestion points to another congestion point. So yeah, so I don't feel like this is any way similar to Bay to Bay.
This next is a comment from Alexandra. Our family does not currently bike down El Prado because it's too dangerous for our small children. We are absolutely looking forward to biking both the Bay Shore and the West Shore businesses we frequent after this project is completed. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really nice area just to especially for those commercial districts, which are like local places to hang out and work and stuff like that. I think you're going to really enjoy the atmosphere in that area. But anyway, sorry.
The next comment is from Kimberly. Please answer the question that you have studies that show that these bike lanes have actually increased bike usage.
I mean, I can look to see if there's any literature on that. I'm not aware of any study for like a particular bike lane or anything like that. So I can look to see if there's anything out there for buffer bike lanes.
The next comment is from Jake. I really want this to happen, but what are the chances it still doesn't happen?
We just answered that one too. I think that was tied into the Bay to Bay. They were talking about the Bay to Bay project.
Mm-hmm. You're on mute.
Thank you. Repeat the email address for someone to access the trees to avoid removal. It sounds like she's just looking for.
It's the last slide. It's the second to last slide, Chuck. So right there, El Prado.
.net.
Yep. And by the way, since we're talking about emails and links, I included in the chat the website that Cal was referring to for the City of Tampa El Prado project. So it's in the chat. Go ahead and get that, and you'll be able to access all of the documents, the previous PowerPoint for the public meeting, and this one here when we post it.
I think the next comment's already been addressed, but I'm going to read it. You have no data on how many bikers are anticipated to use bike lanes. You're building a bike lane in the hope someone will use it. That's from Jim. The next comment is from Amy. If the AADT counts are from 2018, how do you justify that 2022 counts or future 2024 counts will still fall within your excess capacity definition? In addition, I drive down Platt Street 2 times a day, every weekday, and no one is ever using the bike lanes. I'm optimistic about the El Prado sidewalk and pedestrian safety improvements, but the bike lane additions are not realistic based on post-2012 and post-2018 development. The new condo developments alone do not justify lane reductions anywhere in South Tampa. I am sure the AADT counts have increased significantly since 2018 and in the future.
Well, we've actually seen quite a bit of falling traffic over the last couple of years because of COVID. So the counts that we have were before COVID, so they're pretty realistic, and we're still not up to the same capacity or the same volumes that we had pre-COVID. So that being said, that's generally speaking, not on this corridor. But generally, or let's speak about this corridor specifically. You still, even if this road had 3 times the volume, 2 to 3 times the volume that it does today, depending on the segment, it still could operate with 1 lane. So unless you think everybody has all of a sudden added a duplex to their house, we're still there. We don't have that density that even with those condos and densification happening around West Shore Marina District and some of the other areas that are around there. So we can still handle the additional traffic. And if those vehicles, if this road does, let's just say it does get to the point to where a road diet doesn't work, you're gonna have, if that's the way that we're getting around town, you're not gonna be able to drive around town because all the other roads can't handle that amount of traffic. So if we're gonna double or triple the amount of traffic on the entire network, you're not gonna go anywhere. So I think that's what people aren't really understanding. The roadway is just one road in an entire network. And all those people that live are coming into the area, they have to use the other roads to get there. We cannot build enough road to accommodate to have no traffic whatsoever. So on a road where you do have an opportunity to add other features such as bike lanes to actually get a car off the road, you should do it. So if we have excess capacity on a road and we say, hey, this might be a good road to put a safe bike lane on, that would be the optimal thing to get cars off the road to reduce traffic.
This next comment is from Doug. How many additional units are scheduled for the DePartolo project on West Shore, south of Euclid? And how many vehicles will this add to traffic in South Tampa and potentially onto El Prado? Seems preserving 2 lanes is justified to accommodate this next density increase in addition to all the new units south of Gandy.
I have no idea on how many units are in that project, but I think we've kind of answered this this question a bunch. You're talking about the one single family home. It's 2 trips a day, right? I believe is what the traffic generation manual says. So, you know, it's another trip, but it's not a huge increase over just the what you already have there.
Okay, the next comment is from Sally. What did you say were the 3 barriers to bike lanes?
The Del Mabry, the railroad, and Selma.
Oh yeah, yeah, Dale Mabry, just barriers meaning crossing, like the Selman is not grade elevated at most areas, or not open underneath, I should say, at most areas. So it is a literal physical barrier. CSX crossing does not every single road crosses CSX. That's more of a problem down south of Gandy, where after the Selman kind of ends there. And then Dale Mabry is a barrier just in the sense that it is it's a very dangerous place to cross. So if you look at our Dale Mabry project, or the project around Dale Mabry, right now there's missing sidewalk to even push the push button and all kinds of stuff. So trying to get past those 3 barriers that exist inside of Tampa, I think is one of the reasons why this corridor is ideal. And yes, the next question is it being recorded? It is being recorded, and it will be added to the website. I did that we record. I'm not speaking when I say that, correct? The consultant team. Yeah, okay.
Chuck can confirm, but we recorded the last one. I'm sure we're recording this one.
Yeah,
yes,
okay. Because I know that
it is being recorded. It will be added to the website.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Before I said that, I'm glad that we can confirm that.
This next comment or question is rather long, so please bear with me. It's from John. Since you aren't really allowing meaningful public input, I have the following comments. Let me begin by stating how disappointed I am about the lack of any opportunity to provide any meaningful input during this evening's alleged public hearing regarding the proposed El Prado project. I only learned this morning that there would be a virtual public hearing to address proposed revisions to El Prado Avenue, which, among other matters, would replace 2 driving lanes with bike lanes, thereby reducing El Prado from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road. I was unaware of this proposal until it was addressed this morning on the Nextdoor listserv. I immediately registered to participate in the GoToMeeting public hearing, which turned out to be nothing more than what appeared to be a pre-recorded explanation of the proposed project, which seems to be presented as a done deal, followed by responses to written inquiries that were frankly quite dismissive of any suggestion that the proposal is ill-conceived. I am an avid bicyclist who uses El Prado several times each day via my car to access Dale Mabry Highway, and occasionally the western side of the South Tampa Peninsula. And I'm adamantly opposed to the portion of the proposal which anticipates the removal of driving lanes. I am very concerned about the lack of notice and the inability of the public to effectively comment upon the proposal. I never saw any signage on El Prado regarding the proposal, and had it not been for the Nextdoor listserv, I would never have been aware of this proposal.
Okay. We do meeting notifications in various different ways. We did have a public meeting on this back in January, and I think we had probably close to the same amount of people that attended that one. There was a Nextdoor post, I know for a fact, on that public meeting beforehand, social media posts, as well as the city's website. And yeah, I don't know what else to say on that besides the comments. We are sitting here reading each and every one of them and actually going through the comments and questions in person. However, we've always said that you can email in additional comments as well. I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I am trying to be honest. And if some of the things that are just said that are just exaggerations, I'm going to address it as an exaggeration. So if it's not true factually, I will say it's not true factually. But I'm sorry you feel that way, but we can go to the next question.
Okay, hold on. It's taking a bit to scroll.
I can read it while you're doing it. Will there be any tax reduction considerations for reduced customer availability during the construction period? I don't think that there's anything like that. But what I will say is For the most part, the resurfacing is relatively quick. It's not a huge MOT when you resurface. So sidewalks are going to be a little bit more extensive. But yeah, I don't know of any. I never heard of any mechanism for tax reduction.
You're on mute, Christine.
Tell them. I apologize. I'm having a speed issue. Just give me a moment, please.
Oh, okay.
There's a few comments that are kind of say the same thing after that, but I do want to, I'm reading one from Kimberly Tagg at 721.
I have it. Do you with the comment?
Yeah, the funding is not strictly tied to bike lanes. It's not like that at all. The only funding that is at jeopardy for the pedestrian features, the sidewalk, is federally funded. But the comment was talking about if there's no money for the group if they do not provide bike lanes. The multimodal fees are what we're utilizing, and the bike lanes allow us to utilize that funding. We have other funding sources, but that's not the only. That's not the point of the project or the purpose of the project. The purpose of the project is to provide a multimodal connection. So it's not like we get into our funding source and then build our projects based off of what requirements the funding source has. Christine, if you want to take over now, I left at Michael Bruns at 724.
I apologize. I'm having technical difficulties. Please give me a moment.
I'll keep on going. I think she dropped off on accident. All right, Michael Bruns. We live on El Prado and are very happy with the proposed improvements in the second version of the proposal. People currently treat the street like an interstate highway, which I don't understand since it doesn't really connect to anywhere. Anyway, when can we expect it to start and be completed? We answered that earlier, but actual construction late spring, early summer 2024. We live on El Prado and are very happy with the, oh wait, that's the one I just read. So I'll read this one too from Kimberly. You're saying there's absolutely no recourse through the Tampa Transportation Department or any other city department to stop this project. We're not planning on stopping the project. We are listening to comments. So in the January meeting, one of the concerns that was brought up was the pickup and drop off area around Concordia for the school for what is it, Roosevelt Elementary. Okay. At that, we significantly changed the design to address that comment because we realized that's a good point. That's something that we would not know without going down to that corridor every single day. And I'm glad that someone brought that up because it was something that was not thought of at the time of the original design. So we're not looking for, we are trying to listen. We are trying to figure out to get as much information from you guys to make this project work for you as best as possible. The issue about stopping the bike lanes or anything like that, I know it sounds, it can be divisive. I know bike lanes are divisive in certain ways. But even if this was not a bike lane project, we would still reduce the travel lanes because the capacity is a safety issue. So whether we put parking, bike lanes, things like that, we've done that on other roadways where we reduce speeds by moving actual curb and actually building parking spots and stuff like that. This corridor is identified as a bike lane corridor because it is one of the only cross peninsula accesses that they have throughout the South Peninsula area. So that's why this is a bike lane project. But the crux of the matter is it is a you have more capacity on that road than you have traffic volumes. So we do want to hear from you. We do want to make this project work, but it's not about bike lanes, let's stop it and stuff like that. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to actually listen to the public and see what their concerns are with the project.
Okay, the next question is from Matthew Vogler. So if there will be no change at El Prado and McDill eastbound, where are the bikes supposed to go when they approach that intersection?
Yeah, unfortunately at that intersection, it's share the road. So, but when you do get past past that intersection of McDill, it does change the section to a Brook Street section. So it is a much slower moving section. So it's a little bit better. Although I know riding on a Brook Street isn't ideal either. So yeah, there is no really good, perfect solution for that couple block segment or one block segment. But yeah, we're kind of hamstrung there as what we could do.
The next comment is from Sharon. If residents of El Prado had a choice, don't you think drainage is more important than bicycle lanes? Have you coordinated with TECO, who has a plan to put power lines underground?
We will be coordinating with all utilities. I'm not aware of any plans from TECO to put the power lines on the ground, but they do that when they do that. It's not tied to this project. That it's not an either or. What's that?
Yeah, Cal, we do coordinate with utilities that as related to this project. Now,
Right.
whether they are doing a standalone project to underground their lines, it could be independent of this project.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's nothing on this project that requires undergrounding. And then it's not an either or thing with drainage, or we still need to repair the roadway. We still need to do the rehabilitation. The drainage fix that y'all are talking about is a significantly bigger project that might not have a easy solution, because it's a lot more intense than that. But it's not an either or. We're not saying, oh well, now we can't do a drainage project. That's not the way that this works. These monies are specifically tied to transportation. Stormwater does not use them. That's a completely different funding source. Water department doesn't use them. The sewer department doesn't use them. Wastewater department doesn't use them. They don't go to Parks and Rec. This is strictly transportation funding.
And to chime in too, Cal, on the utility coordination, as Bruno mentioned, we have coordinated with the utility companies, and TECO hasn't identified any new work occurring along this corridor, at least in the feedback that we had gotten from them through the utility coordination process.
The next comment is from Timothy. I'm sorry.
Actually, don't read that one. I don't want to give he's talking about a permit, a personal thing. So okay. Timothy, okay. If you want to email El Prado, and maybe if I can find your email somehow, we can answer that directly. It's kind of all, I didn't want to, it's just a private comment, so I didn't want to put that out there. Okay.
So the next question is from Johan. Will there be a traffic light at Bayshore and El Prado?
No, it's a RRFB, the yellow flashers that they have down Bayshore.
The next comment is from Sharon. The project does not sound environmentally sensitive. Have you consulted with an environmentalist?
We have an arborist, but as far as environmentalists, promoting other modes of transportation would be an environmental prerogative. There's nothing here that we have to really worry about as far as environmental site issues or anything like that. But
yeah, we're not creating any more impervious. We're not adding any more. We're not hitting any wetlands. We're not. So the issue of environmental is this project here has minimal environmental issues to consider.
Actually, we're increasing green space from landscape islands that we will be adding. We're repurposing a vehicular lane to a bike lane. That's going to be a net reduction in nutrients added to the stormwater system surrounding water bodies. So there is an environmental benefit to this project.
The next comment is from Timothy. It's just overall a comment and support. We're in the neighborhood, but it looks like a great project. The next comment is from Michael. Can this project be done without losing a lane of traffic and not adding a bike lane? Has a study been done on the demand for the bike lane?
We've answered that as well. I think we
Okay.
get it.
The comment from Jake is a thank you, saying it will help the neighborhood. Next comment is from Charles. In this area in Virginia Park, Sunset Park, and Belmar, more so than bikes, we have increased small electric vehicle use, including golf carts. Will this make this safer for our style of mobility?
If they're LSVs, the low speed vehicles, they're legal. The golf carts aren't legal unless they have a city ordinance. So the low speed vehicles are like tapped out at 35 and they have seat belts, I believe, and like headlights and turn signals. But neither of them would, the bike lanes wouldn't affect that. Those were supposed to be driven in travel lanes, especially the low speed vehicles. The golf carts, unless there's an ordinance I'm not aware of in this area, they're not allowed on city streets. And that's by state law, unless the city designates the area. Davis Islands is a designated area. And the ones downtown are low speed vehicles, not golf carts.
Okay. The next comment is from Michael. Isn't having more capacity a good thing in case we need it in the future? Do you live in the area? I would prefer to have our city rep involved.
Yeah, we've kind of addressed that. As far as the city rep, I'm not sure if he means council member or not, but they were alerted on the both of the public meeting notices as well as the mayor and other council members as well.
Okay. And our last comment is, are there any plans to reduce the speed on El Prado? Would love to see the speed reduced.
We're currently posted at 30 and we're maintaining 30. 30. That came up last meeting, and we didn't get a lot of comments from that, to be honest, because especially on the section west of Dale Mabry, there is a significant change to where it's very residential, and there's a huge drop in traffic volumes there. If that's something that the residents would want us to look into, we can certainly look into it. We've done it in other areas as well. And with a change in speed or a change in context and design, you can justify a change in speed as well. But it's a good question. I think that might be something that we should explore. But I'd like to hear a little bit more from the residents. I actually wish that question would have gotten in earlier so we could have had a little bit more conversation on the comments. All right, I think that might be the last one. I can close this out. Look, so it's been a pleasure. I know sometimes these projects are a little bit of a controversial, and sometimes they're a little bit misunderstood, and sometimes it's we try to do our best to try to get the word out and try to justify or give it the justification and let people know why we're working on a certain project. But the biggest thing is I can tell you from experience, I'd much rather have 87 people in a public meeting than 7, because even if they're all yelling at us for doing the wrong thing, I'd rather have that, because I like that those comments. It makes us feel like we get a feel for what the community wants in this area. So I appreciate all y'all coming out, and if y'all have any other comments, please feel free to email us or contact us on the any ways that are shown right now on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.